You've been supportive in the past of the line item veto. What would that mean to the next president of the United States to have that in your toolbox?
You know, it would really change the relationship between the executive branch and the legislative branch to have the line item veto. I had it in Massachusetts. Boy, that was great. I vetoed over 800 measures as governor. Isn't that fun? I mean, it was just and it means you can have an impact. And you can look at areas where there's waste and you can go after that area and focus on it. Vetoes have such extraordinary power. Just amazing. We had an interesting court decision. The Supreme Court of my state said that a tax hike that had occurred on capital gains in the middle of the year was unconstitutional. You couldn't raise the tax in the middle of the year. So they said you have a choice. You either have to go back and give people back the money. This was from years before, by the way. They'd raised the tax, it was a number of years ago. They said you got to go back to those people and give them a refund for the extra money you took, or you can go back to them and get more money for the full year. Now you can imagine what my legislature did. They voted to go back to those people and get them to give more money for a prior year. And I vetoed that. Now, with the legislature, 85% Democratic, how was I going to get that veto upheld? You can't just sign your paper, you got to go out and go to work. And so I asked our Department of Revenue to send out a tax bill to all the people who might see higher taxes if my veto wasn't upheld, with exactly how much they were going to owe. And said, you know, this is going to happen to you unless you get in touch with your legislature and get them to agree with my veto. And as the great Everett Dirksen once said, when they felt the heat, they saw the light. And my legislature upheld my veto. We gave people a refund rather than a tax increase. I was proud of the fact we cut taxes 19 times. I'd have cut them more and lowered them more. They'd have gone along with me more. But the line item veto in Washington would allow a president to pick out those parts of a bill that don't make sense, and by the way, then allow Congress to vote on them. I'm happy. If they want to say, look, there's something that the president pulled out and vetoed, but we want it back in, let them vote on that. But when it all comes together in one big package of oatmeal, and it's hard to pick the fly out of there. And I'm going to pick those flies out of the oatmeal and make sure that we have a chance to vote on them one by one or crush them like they deserve. Because right now we're spending too much. We're getting legislation that's overburdening our economy. As Eric mentioned, I guess I should call you Mr. Chairman. Chairman Holcomb mentioned, I spent my life in business, 25 years in business, small business, medium-sized business. I worked with big businesses, both as a consultant to them and ultimately invested in some pretty big businesses. And in that experience, I competed with businesses in other parts of the world. And I saw what worked and what did not work to create a strong economy. And I came up with, borrowing a title from the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I came up with 7 habits of highly effective economies. And you've heard me rehearse these before, but I'm just going to remind you in case you didn't. There's 7 things I think you have to do for our economy to be robust and dynamic and leading the world. One is, employer tax rates need to be competitive with other nations. Right now ours aren't. Two is, the regulators and bureaucrats and regulations have to be streamlined, modernized, up to date, and encouraging the private enterprise of a community and a nation, as opposed to burdening it. Government in this nation sees business as the enemy too often. We need to have business seen as the beneficiary of regulation and regulators and government. That's number 2. Number 3, you have to have trade policies that work for us, not just for the other guys. And when other people cheat, like China does, you got to say no more. We're not going to allow that. Number 4, when you have as much energy as we have, natural gas, oil, coal, nuclear, as well as our renewable resources, you take advantage of those instead of spending billions of dollars buying energy from other people. That strengthens your vote. You got to have the rule of law. Now you think, well, we have the rule of law. Well, that's true. But we also have a president who appointed labor stooges to the National Labor Relations Board to do the bidding of organized labor to tell a company like Boeing they can't build a factory that's going to employ 7,000 people in South Carolina because it's a right-to-work state. Let me tell you, the Americans have a right to work, and they should not be forced to have it. Number 6, you got to have great schools, great universities, building human capital. This is critical for a powerful economy. You also have to have immigration policies that work for you. By the way, legal immigration, that's a great thing. That's very important to America. And you probably know that I'm not wild about illegal immigration. It threatens legal immigration. Right now, I'm absolutely convinced we got to have a fence. We got to have enough Border Patrol agents to patrol the fence. And we got to turn off the magnets that bring people here illegally and give them great state tuition. Number 7, one more. Number 7 is this. You think about this. If you're a small business person or a big company wanting to invest and build a new factory, you got to know whether the future of that country you're going to put your factory in or put your investment in is going to be like that of Greece, or instead of it's going to be one that's growing and robust like America of old. And to make sure we're not like a Greece, you have to make sure that consistently the government does not spend more money than it takes in. You got to cut spending and balance it up with all 7 we've been breaking for the last couple of years, last 3 years. And I don't think Barack Obama's a bad guy. I gotta be honest with you. I think he's a nice guy. I just think he's way out of his depth. Don't think he has a clue how to run the economy. I do. I'm gonna work to put America